You know what destroys me the most? It's not the betrayal. It's not even the lies. It's the fact that I saw the signs for months, and I did nothing. I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself to keep the peace. I told myself that family harmony was worth more than my gut screaming at me that something was wrong. God, how wrong I was. My name is Margaret. I'm 62 years old, and 3 months ago, I watched my daughter-in-law try to kill my granddaughter at the edge of Millfield Pier. But this story doesn't start there. No, this nightmare began with me ignoring every instinct I had as a mother and grandmother because I was too damn polite to trust myself. Before I tell you what really happened that night, and I will tell you everything, every horrific detail, I need you to do something for me. In the comments below, tell me, have you ever had that feeling? That gnawing, desperate certainty that something is wrong with someone you're supposed to love? Have you ever ignored it to keep peace? Because if you have, you need to hear this story. You need to know what happens when you stay silent. And tell me where you're watching from, your country, your city. Because what happened to my family? It could happen anywhere. Evil doesn't have borders. 3 years ago, my life was simple. Beautiful even. I owned a small bakery called Morning Glory on Seaside Avenue, just 2 blocks from the ocean. Every morning at 4 a.m., I'd wake to the sound of waves and start my day kneading dough. The smell of fresh bread, the steam from coffee machines, the gentle chatter of regular customers. This was my world. This was my peace. My husband, Robert, had drowned in a fishing accident when our son Danny was only 12. I raised that boy alone, working 18-hour days to keep the bakery running and put food on our table. But you know what? We made it. Danny grew up strong, kind, hardworking. He helped me run the bakery, and I was proud. So damn proud. Then he met Serena. God, she was beautiful. Tall, elegant, with these piercing green eyes that seemed to see everything. She was a landscape designer, sophisticated, well-spoken, the kind of woman who could walk into any room and command attention without saying a word. When Danny brought her home for the first time, I thought, finally, my boy deserves someone who appreciates him. She was perfect. Too perfect. Serena would help in the bakery, charming customers with her smile and her knowledge of herbs and flowers. She redesigned our little garden behind the shop, turning it into something that belonged in a magazine. When she and Danny married, the whole town celebrated. And when my granddaughter Lily was born 2 years later, I thought my heart might burst from happiness. 7 years. For 7 years, I watched this woman play the perfect daughter-in-law, the perfect mother, the perfect wife. And for 7 years, something in my gut whispered that it was all wrong. But I ignored it. I pushed down every doubt, every uncomfortable moment, every time I caught her staring at me with those calculating eyes. Because what kind of monster suspects their own family of what? I didn't even know what I was suspicious of. The first crack appeared 3 months ago. I was picking up Lily from school, something I did every Tuesday and Thursday while Danny handled the afternoon rush at the bakery. Lily was 7 then, this bright, curious little girl with Danny's eyes and her mother's stubborn streak. She loved helping me bake cookies and always had flour in her hair and frosting on her nose. But that Tuesday, something was different. We were walking toward my car when suddenly, and I mean suddenly, Lily grabbed my wrist so hard her little fingernails dug into my skin. Her face had gone completely white. "Please, Nana," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Come with me. Now." Before I could ask what was wrong, she was dragging me away from the car, away from the school, toward this little maintenance shed in the park across the street. My 70-year-old knees were screaming, but the terror in her voice made me follow. She pulled me into that dark, musty shed and immediately crouched down by a gap in the wooden boards. She was trembling, actually trembling, and when I tried to ask her what was happening, she just pointed through the crack and whispered, "Look." So I looked. And I saw Serena. She was standing by the school fence, but she wasn't there to pick up Lily. No, she was watching. Just watching. Her perfect posture was gone. Her shoulders were hunched, her hands were clenched into fists, and her face. God, her face. I'd never seen hatred like that. Pure, cold hatred as she scanned the playground, looking for something. Looking for someone. Looking for my granddaughter. When she didn't see Lily, her expression changed to something worse than anger. Panic. She started walking faster, checking behind trees, peering into cars. And then she saw me through that crack in the shed, and our eyes met. For just a second, the mask slipped completely. The woman looking back at me wasn't the poised, elegant Serena I'd known for 7 years. This was someone else entirely. Someone capable of. I didn't want to think about what. Then, just like that, the mask was back. She smiled and waved, calling out Margaret. Have you seen Lily? I came to surprise her. But my granddaughter was still trembling beside me, still too terrified to move. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done? Would you have confronted her right there? Would you have trusted a 7-year-old's instincts over 7 years of seemingly perfect behavior? Because I didn't. God help me, I didn't. I took Lily's hand and walked out of that shed, and I lied. I told Serena we'd been playing hide and seek. I watched my daughter-in-law hug my granddaughter, and I watched Lily's whole body go rigid in her arms. And I said nothing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the terror in Lily's eyes, the way she'd known to hide without being told. 7-year-olds don't develop that kind of survival instinct without reason. They don't learn to be afraid of their own mothers unless something has taught them to be. But what could I do? What could I say? Danny, I think your wife is dangerous because she looked scary for 30 seconds. I think there's something wrong with Serena because Lily was afraid. He would have thought I was losing my mind. Hell, I thought I was losing my mind. So I started watching. Really watching. And once you start looking for cracks in a perfect facade, you see them everywhere. Like how Serena controlled every single aspect of our daily routines. Not just suggesting, controlling. She decided what time Lily woke up, what she ate for breakfast, which clothes she wore to school. She chose which customers I was allowed to chat with for more than 5 minutes. She rearranged my own damn bakery to improve efficiency, moving things I'd kept in the same place for 20 years. And Danny? My strong, independent son who'd helped me build that business from nothing? He just went along with it. Serena knows best, he'd say. She's got great organizational skills. Great organizational skills. That's what he called it when his wife told him he couldn't have coffee with his old friends anymore because they were a bad influence. But it was the little things with Lily that really broke my heart. My granddaughter, who used to burst through our front door every day with stories and laughter, became quiet. Careful. She'd glance at her mother before answering simple questions like, "How was school today?" or "What do you want for lunch?" One afternoon, I found her in my bedroom, shoving something into a shoebox she'd hidden under my bed. When I asked what it was, she went pale and said, "Nothing, Nana. Just drawings." But I saw enough to know it wasn't nothing. It was a drawing of her family, stick figures of her, Danny, and me, all smiling. And then there was Serena. Same blonde hair, same green dress she'd worn to church that Sunday. But this stick figure had red eyes. Bright red, angry eyes, and a mouth turned down in a permanent scream. When I tried to ask Lily about it, she snatched the box away and begged me not to tell her mother. "Promise me, Nana. Promise you won't tell Mom about my drawings." What kind of 7-year-old has to hide her artwork from her own mother? And still, I said nothing. I kept telling myself I was overreacting, that I was seeing problems where none existed. Serena was under stress, managing a household, running her landscape business, being a mother. Of course she needed structure. Of course she seemed controlling sometimes. That didn't make her dangerous. But then came the night that changed everything. It was a Tuesday in September. I'd been staying over more often, supposedly to help with Lily's school routine, but really because I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was going to happen. Danny was working late inventory at the bakery, and the house was quiet. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of glass breaking. Not a crash, just a small, deliberate crack. Like someone had tapped a mirror with something sharp. I lay there for a moment, listening. The house was old, and it made noises. Maybe a tree branch had hit a window. Maybe the bathroom mirror had finally given up after years of steam and humidity. But then I heard something that made my blood freeze. Whispering. Someone was in the bathroom, whispering to themselves. And since Danny wasn't home and Lily was asleep in her room, that could only mean one thing. I slipped out of bed and crept down the hallway. The bathroom door was cracked open, and a thin line of light spilled into the dark hall. I pressed myself against the wall and listened. "He slipped," Serena was saying, her voice soft and sing-song, like she was telling herself a bedtime story. I didn't mean for him to slip. But he was going to leave me, wasn't he? He was going to take everything away. I looked through the crack in the door, and what I saw will haunt me until the day I die. Serena was standing in front of the bathroom mirror, but half of it was shattered. Blood was dripping from her right hand where she'd cut herself on the broken glass. But she wasn't treating the wound. She wasn't even looking at it. She was staring at her reflection in the remaining pieces of mirror, talking to herself like she was having a conversation with someone else. "You understand, don't you?" she whispered to her reflection. I couldn't let him leave. Men always leave. They promise they'll stay, but they always find reasons to go. First David, then almost Danny. But I stopped it. I fixed it. David. She'd mentioned a David. Serena had been married before she met Danny. I knew that much. Her first husband had died in an accident, a fall down some stairs at their house. She'd been devastated, she'd told us. Heartbroken. That's why it had taken her so long to open her heart to love again. But as I watched her bleeding hand trace patterns on the broken mirror, I realized there had been no accident. "I'm getting better at it," she continued, her voice dreamy and detached. "Practice makes perfect." Danny almost figured it out last month when he found the life insurance papers, but I convinced him they were for planning purposes. He believes everything I tell him. They all do. Life insurance papers. She was planning to kill my son. I must have made a sound, a gasp, a sob, something, because suddenly her eyes snapped to the mirror, looking directly at where I was hiding. For a moment, we stared at each other through the reflection, and I saw the real Serena for the second time. No mask. No pretense. Just cold, calculating madness. Then she smiled. "Bad dreams, Mom," she called out sweetly, turning to face the door. "Go back to sleep." But her eyes. God, her eyes were completely empty. Like looking into a doll's face. I ran back to my room and locked the door, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might wake the whole house. I sat on my bed until dawn, staring at that door handle, waiting for it to turn. It never did. But when morning came and Serena knocked gently to ask if I wanted coffee, she was back to being the perfect daughter-in-law. Sweet, concerned, asking if I'd slept well. The bathroom mirror had been completely replaced. What was I supposed to do? Who was I supposed to tell? I had no proof except the word of a 62-year-old woman who'd witnessed what could be explained as a late-night breakdown. Serena had been under stress. She'd had a nightmare. She'd accidentally broken the mirror and cut herself cleaning it up. That's what anyone would think. That's what Danny would think. But I knew better. And more importantly, I finally understood why Lily was so afraid. I couldn't go to Danny, not yet. But I could do some digging on my own. The next morning, I called Robert's old partner on the police force. Jim Kowalski had retired 5 years earlier, but he still had friends in the department. More importantly, he'd known our family for decades, and he trusted my judgment. "Jim," I said when he answered the phone, "I need you to look into something for me." Quietly. I told him about Serena's first marriage, about David, about the accident. I didn't mention what I'd seen in the bathroom, not yet. I just asked him to see what he could find out about the circumstances of David Morrison's death. 3 days later, Jim called me back. "Margaret," he said, his voice grim, "you need to be very careful. David Morrison had died of a skull fracture after falling down the stairs in his home. The initial investigation had been brief, no signs of forced entry, no evidence of foul play, a grieving widow who'd been out shopping when it happened. Case closed." But Jim had a friend who'd worked that case, and there had been questions. The neighbor had reported hearing shouting from the Morrison house the night before David died. Loud voices, crashes, what sounded like furniture being thrown around. When police asked Serena about it, she'd claimed they'd been moving some heavy furniture, trying to rearrange their bedroom as a surprise for David's birthday. David's sister had mentioned that he'd been talking about leaving Serena. He discovered some financial irregularities, money missing from their joint accounts, credit cards opened in his name that he'd never applied for. He'd been planning to file for divorce. And then there was the life insurance. Serena had increased David's life insurance policy just 6 months before his death. Doubled it, in fact. The insurance company had paid out without question, accidental death, grieving widow, no red flags. $300,000. That's not all, Jim continued. I had my friend run Serena's background a little deeper. Before David, there was another boyfriend. College sweetheart named Marcus Webb. Died in a car accident when she was 22, single car crash, late at night, no witnesses. She wasn't in the car, but she was the beneficiary of his life insurance policy too. 3 men. 3 accidents. 3 life insurance payouts. And now she was planning to make my Danny number 4. I wanted to confront her immediately. I wanted to call the police, call Danny, scream the truth to anyone who would listen. But Jim convinced me to wait. "We need more than circumstantial evidence," he said. "Everything we have could be explained away. You need to catch her in the act, or get her to confess, or find some concrete proof of intent." So I waited. And I watched. And I prepared for the worst. I just didn't expect it to happen so soon. Last Tuesday night, I woke up to the sound of a car door slamming. My room faced the street, and I'd gotten used to light sleepers in the years since Robert died. 3:17 a.m. according to my bedside clock. I looked out the window and saw our family van in the driveway, engine running, headlights on. And there was Serena, forcing a struggling Lily into the passenger seat. My granddaughter was in her pajamas, barefoot, crying. She was fighting, trying to get away, but Serena was too strong. Even from my window, I could see the terror on Lily's face. I screamed for Danny and ran downstairs, but I was too late. By the time I reached the front door, the van was already backing out of the driveway. Danny appeared beside me, confused and half asleep. "What's going on? Where's Serena taking Lily?" I didn't have time to explain everything. I just grabbed his phone and opened the GPS tracking app that linked to our family plan. "Drive," I told him. "I'll explain on the way." We followed the GPS signal through empty streets toward the coast. I tried to tell Danny everything about David, about Marcus, about what I'd seen in the bathroom mirror. He listened in stunned silence, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "Mom," he finally said, "why didn't you tell me sooner?" Why didn't I tell him sooner? Because I was a coward. Because I wanted to believe I was wrong. Because I thought I could handle it myself, protect everyone without destroying our family. Because I was a stupid, stubborn old woman who thought she knew better. The GPS signal stopped at Millfield Pier. When we arrived, I could see our van parked at the edge of the parking lot, near the wooden walkway that extended out over the water. The pier was dark except for a few scattered streetlights, and the waves below were rough from an incoming storm. Danny called 911 while we were still in the car, but I couldn't wait for the police. I could see two figures on the pier, one tall, one small, and I knew we might not have much time. We ran toward the pier, and as we got closer, I could hear Serena talking. Not shouting, talking in that same sing-song voice I'd heard in the bathroom. "It's better this way, baby," she was saying to Lily. "Mommy can't let anyone take you away from me. Not your daddy, not your grandmother, not anyone." Lily was pressed against the pier railing, as far from her mother as she could get without falling into the dark water below. "I want Nana," she kept saying. "Please, Mommy, I want my Nana." "Nana doesn't understand," Serena replied, stepping closer. "She's trying to poison your daddy against me. She's trying to break up our family. But I won't let that happen. I'll never let that happen again." That's when I saw the rock in Serena's hand. Not a big one about the size of a softball, heavy enough to do what she was planning to do. She was going to make it look like an accident. A little girl who'd wandered onto the pier at night, slipped, hit her head, drowned in the rough water. And then she'd comfort my grief-stricken son, help him through his loss, and eventually Danny would have his own accident. "Serena." I screamed her name as loud as I could, and she spun around, startled. For just a moment, her grip on the rock loosened, and that was all the time Lily needed. My brave, smart granddaughter ran toward us as fast as her little legs could carry her, sobbing my name over and over again. But Serena wasn't finished. As Lily reached safety in Danny's arms, Serena's expression changed one final time. The mask didn't just slip, it shattered completely. What was left behind was years of pain, rage, and desperate loneliness that had festered into something monstrous. "She's all I have," Serena screamed, raising the rock above her head. "She's the only one who loves me. You can't take her away." That's when the police arrived, sirens wailing, lights flashing across the dark water. Officers surrounded the pier, and slowly, carefully, they talked Serena down from the edge. She collapsed when they took the rock from her hands, sobbing like a broken child. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," she kept saying. "I just didn't want to be alone." The next few hours were a blur of police statements, hospital visits, and phone calls to lawyers. Serena was taken to a psychiatric facility for evaluation, and we learned the full extent of her planning. She'd researched the pier, studied the tide schedules, even taken out a new life insurance policy on Lily just 2 months earlier. She'd been planning this for weeks, maybe months. The house felt different when we finally came home. Lighter, somehow, but also emptier. Danny moved back into his old room at my place temporarily. He couldn't bear to stay in the house he'd shared with Serena. Lily started sleeping in my bed, afraid to be alone in the dark. It's been 3 months now. Serena is still in psychiatric care, and the doctors say she's responding well to treatment. She was diagnosed with severe abandonment disorder and antisocial personality traits, likely stemming from childhood trauma we'd never known about. Danny visits her sometimes. He's torn between the woman he thought he loved and the monster she'd become. The therapists say forgiveness is possible, but it will take years of work for all of us. Lily is in therapy too, learning to trust again, learning that love doesn't require fear. She's started drawing again, and her new pictures show families smiling together, with normal colored eyes and happy faces. As for me, I've learned that keeping peace at the cost of truth is the most dangerous thing you can do. I've learned that trusting your instincts, even when they seem crazy, can save lives. Most importantly, I've learned that love without control is the only real love there is. But here's what haunts me every single day. How many other Serenas are out there? How many perfect wives, perfect mothers, perfect family members are hiding behind masks of normalcy while planning unspeakable things? How many grandmothers like me are ignoring their instincts right now, choosing family harmony over family safety? So I'm asking you, all of you watching this, wherever you are in the world, tell me in the comments, have you ever felt that something was wrong with someone close to you? Have you ever ignored warning signs because confronting them seemed too hard, too messy, too risky? And more importantly, what are you going to do about it now? Because here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Evil doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with warning labels or obvious red flags. It comes disguised as love, as protection, as someone who just wants what's best for the family. It comes with a perfect smile and a helpful attitude and 1,000 small excuses for why things have to be exactly the way they are. If my story has taught you anything, let it be this. Trust your gut. Trust your children's fear. Trust that uncomfortable feeling you get when someone's behavior doesn't match their words. And most importantly, trust that speaking up, even when you're not sure, even when you might be wrong, is always better than staying silent when someone you love might be in danger. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me your story. Tell me if you've been where I was, afraid to speak up, afraid to rock the boat. Because the boat was already sinking. I just couldn't see the holes. And finally, I want you to answer this question, and I want you to really think about it before you respond. If you were in my position, would you have told Danny the truth sooner? Even without concrete proof? Even knowing it might destroy his marriage, his happiness, his trust in me? Or would you have done what I did, waited, watched, hoped you were wrong until it was almost too late? Because sometimes I wonder, if I'd spoken up that first day when Lily dragged me into that shed, could I have prevented all of this? Could I have saved my son from loving someone who never existed? Could I have spared my granddaughter months of fear? I'll never know. And that uncertainty will follow me for the rest of my life. But I do know this. I will never again choose silence over safety. I will never again let politeness override protection. And I will never again assume that someone's behavior is none of my business when a child's welfare is at stake. The next time my gut tells me something is wrong, I'm going to listen. I just pray there won't be a next time. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for letting me share this pain, this anger, this desperate hope that maybe, my mistake can prevent someone else's tragedy. Leave your thoughts below. Tell me your country, your story, your truth. And please, please trust your instincts. The life you save might be your own.